Welcome back. Just before we went on break, my guest today, Kenny Ajayi, was telling us about human factor in his career. What exactly does your current role entail?
Right. So I've actually moved on from human factors, but when I was in human factors, what it does entail is that human factors is a science that uses information about human beings, their limitations and their capabilities to design systems, products, and processes which lead to a comfortable, effective, and efficient interaction with systems. So for example, we have human factors or ergonomic products. I think a common one would be cars are often marketed these days as ergonomic, or when a product is so-called ergonomic, it means it's easy to use.
It's easy to use.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Now I understand what you were saying earlier on about the fact that, the roles and some of the roles you've gone into, they were very interesting, roles that you've actually gone to. That sounds actually quite interesting. Yeah. And that's where the innovation bit comes out of, isn't it? Okay. So you then got your first master's degree.
That's right.
And then you went on to have, so when you got that master's degree, did you then use that to go into a role? Did you get employment from there? Obviously, you've moved away from the administrator.
That's right.
Okay. How long were you in the role as an administrator for?
So that was for 3 years.
For 3 years, okay.
Yeah.
And then you then went on to where next?
So after the master's, which I did full-time, I then went into the NHS and took on a role as a clinical ergonomist, looking at how the impact of work, the negative impact of work on people's health, and trying to prevent that. So making work as compatible with human capability as possible, making sure people don't get damaged, stressed, back injuries, and those sorts of things from work. And then I moved on and did the same role in a local authority. And afterwards, I moved on and then started consulting in a consultancy, a risk management consultancy. I went through that and rose up to the position of a director in that risk management consultancy.
Wow, excellent. So how long were you in that career path for over those periods?
So over that period, I was in the career path for about 20 years in total.
Okay.
Around about the 17-year mark, I started to get bored.
I was just going to say, what then happens when you're in the career? Because I think at times, there might be that bit of stagnancy in our career, and then you just feel, what's next?
Exactly.
Well, where do I move on to? What do I do next?
Yes. I started to get bored, and I thought I'd done everything there was to do in that career. So, and because a lot of the work I was doing was in the health service, consulting for the health service, I decided that I wanted to focus more on the patient safety aspect of healthcare. And this was allied to what I was doing anyway, but albeit a different career field. My challenge then was I'd now gotten to a very high level, position-wise. I also was earning a good salary. I was concerned that if you make a career move, I was concerned about status, and I was concerned about pay. So my goal was, if I made a career move, I had to at least maintain my status and maintain my pay.
And that's usually a bit challenging, because most of the time when you make a career move like that, you sort of need to go back down the ladder again.
True.
And then sort of you might not go right all the way down, but at least not at that same level. So for you to be able to achieve this, you then had to do another master's degree.
Correct.
Okay. And when you did that master's degree, what were some of the things that happened along? Because you did share some interesting things with me in terms of how God just orchestrated things.
Yeah. I think the master's degree was, there were 3 things that came out to me in the whole process. The first is that if a man's way pleases the Lord, he gives him favor even before his enemies. The second thing I learned really is that it's the blessings of God that make rich and add no sorrow. And the third I learned is that really the battle is not to the strong and the race is not to the swift. The people who work the hardest are not the people who get paid the hardest. And God can open doors that no man can open. So just briefly, one of the things God did was to get me in touch with a mentor. And it wasn't somebody I would naturally have been in touch with. And the mentor really impacted how my career progression, the grade I came up with in the master's. For example, in the master's program, I had a distinction. Now, talking
That's
about
good. For someone that say couldn't speak proper English.
I know.
We really come a long way.
Yes. And one of the reasons I had distinction was I'd had good grades coming up to the master over the time. And I was doing this part-time, so it was fairly challenging.
Okay.
But the very final project and the final module I did, I didn't get the kind of grade I wanted, partly because life got in the way and other things happened. But I still got a distinction. But one of the things that really impacted me was one of the people who was involved in the process of deciding at the examination board happened to see me afterwards, and there was no reason why this person should share this information. And this was what she said. She said, your matter came up for discussion, and because it was one of those where we had to make a decision one way or the other, we had a discretion to call it a distinction or not a distinction. And she said, I spoke up for you, and I said, if you must give somebody a distinction, give this guy a distinction. And
that's just God giving
I thought that was God's favor.
That was just God's favor.
That was favor. Excuse me. So I thought that was favor. And coming back to the story of my mentor, she helped me to be able to get the next role.
So can I just stop you there, because we can't just scale over that.
Okay.
Having a mentor in your career path, even in your spiritual walk, in your relationship, whatever that relationship, please touch on that. Because I believe that it just helps you to get to that place a lot quicker. Touch on that for us.
Absolutely. I think having a mentor is one of the most important things that anyone can do physically, in secular, or in your career, or spiritually. I'm convinced that I won't be where I am now if God hadn't sent a mentor my way. I know that for a fact. And the thing really is that a mentor helps you to get quicker to where you're going by helping you to avoid mistakes that you don't have any business making.
Exactly.
And they just help you to really fast track your process. So that's the experience I've had.
So going back in terms of what she then also helped you with in terms of securing another job.
So she, my mentor was a chief executive in the NHS. And the people, when the interview process for the new job started, I found out I was going to be interviewed by the chief executive of the organization I'm now working for. And my mentor basically took me through the ropes. She had been there, done that.
Exactly. So
she knew exactly what sort of questions I was going to be asked. And honestly, at that level, there's a lot more that goes into the process. And the person who turns out the right candidate, or the candidate who is appointed, there are all kinds of other things that go in. It's not just competence, it's not just their personality, it's a lot more other things. And she was able to take me through all those nuances and how just you present yourself throughout the process. So that was helpful.
Basically.
Exactly. That was
and
helpful.
I remember you saying that even when you got this job, you were thinking to yourself, are you really searching for work? The way you were just, taking your time and, in terms of sending CVs.
That's right.
And just to emphasize on what you were saying, that, when a man's ways pleases God, you don't struggle.
That's right.
For some things.
That's very right. A very well-meaning person who knew at the time I was doing a master's and looking for a career change, said to me, and the person had authority in the field because they know about careers and things. And the person said to me, I don't think you're serious. And the person basically said, you have to burn the midnight oil. You have to be turning out CVs. Honestly, I applied for 2 jobs. I got one of them. And this person said, you should have by now sent about 50, maybe 100 CVs.
The race really is not serious, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's just God in action. And even when you got to this current role, which you are now, I know that you've shared with me the favor that you've experienced and how you've been singled out amongst many.
Yeah. I mean, this was favor all the way. And I got sent on a certain development opportunity. And honestly, the way God orchestrated it, I could not have made it happen. Because God used people who were completely removed from the situation. What had happened really was somebody who used to work for the organization found out about this opportunity and then connected me in a way that only God could have made it happen. I would probably not have applied for this opportunity myself. But it ended up me being sent abroad on an executive development program.
All expenses paid.
All expenses paid.
Full works.
All the works. And,
you know.
And the kind of program where really it's basically the highest level of executive development in that field.
In that field.
And to have been in an organization for less than 2 years.
Exactly, that's another thing. Right. Yes, that's another thing, being in that organization for that period. I want to really thank you for taking the time out to be on our show.
Thank you for inviting me.
For sharing your experience. And we're hoping that someone somewhere who's going through challenges in their careers would hear this, will be encouraged, especially if you've been in a career path for 20 years. Yeah. And God is saying, it's time to move on, it's time to move on. You know, then they would hear, they will be inspired, and they will get up. Yeah. And they will move on. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Your career path only gets better and better.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Next week on Story Before Glory.
I was a club girl, so I was going clubbing all the time, as in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, anytime. People said so many negative things to me that, oh, your life has finished.